Welcome back and Happy New Year. So we are going to kick off the year with something that Apos Audio had generously let me borrow late last year, and this is the FiiO K11 R2R version. So when this one was announced, I don't know when it was, like kind of late last year as well. I don't remember if it was late last year, but sometime last year. I do think it had a lot of attention. It was going to be FiiO's first R2R version at an affordable price, and that's kind of exactly what they delivered. I think it's a very solid unit. I think the K11 was probably also a solid unit. The R2R version is probably slightly a little bit better. I never heard the original, but I do think that when this one was announced, I think people generally were interested in it. And I think people are going to generally be interested in things that add a little bit more value, do things slightly differently with the R2R resistor array. So I do think that FiiO kind of got this one right. They put out a box, a nice DAC amp, very solid DAC amp at a very attractive price. It's about $160 on Apos Audio. So I think they got a lot of things right on this one. And this is what it looks like up close. This yellow is actually an LED, and it does change colors, but since it's not plugged into a source, it won't reflect anything but yellow right now. The front display, you do get the 6.35 millimeter. You do get a 4.4 balanced. You do get a display which will show the volume level. It will also give you a mini menu to select a few options such as the input in and oversampling, no oversampling. So, it is a very nice looking box. It's actually quite small. It's a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. One of these things that's going to fit on your desk with not that much of a problem. And I think at the price point, I think that's exactly what they were going through. And I think they got a lot of these things right with this box. And on the back, we can kind of see the power, USB in, coax or optical in, coax in, and then line out, which is actually super handy. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later as well. So we'll kind of go through kind of the obvious things. What is it spec-wise? This is the R2R version resistor array DAC of the K11. So it does have quite a bit of power on single-ended. It does do 460 milliwatts. It does do 1.3 watts or 1300 milliwatts at 32 ohms. On the balance, 4.4. You do get 3 gain levels, a high, medium, and a low. Those 3 actually do have 3 volume curves, and if you go look on their website, you'll see what those volume curves look like and how they might affect the sound as you turn them up. I tended to go between low. I think the low gain is typically where I was, medium on some of the planners that are a little bit harder to drive, but this one does have quite a bit of power, so there wasn't that much of a need. I don't have the huge headphones that really needed the high gain, but you do get a nice display. You do get the custom lighting, like I said, on top. So what is it really? I will say this one is a very nice entry-level DAC amp, but it's a really great value at $160 with the R2R bonus, right? If you just look at it at $160, I think FiiO delivers really, really nice DAC amps at that price point. I don't think the K11 is actually any different. I think the K11 R2R version is, you get this R2R version for people who are looking specifically to try R2R resistor arrays. You will get that at a very attractive price. And I think they kind of nailed that price point and getting people willing to spend that much money to try something new, something that might be, lead them to buying more expensive R2R DACs. I think FiiO kind of nailed this concept with the K11. But generally, there's really no noticeable faults with this one. It has really nice sound quality. You really do get desktop power at a very attractive price. I would call it a very safe pick to upgrade to your first desktop. It's really, there aren't that many DAC amps that I've kind of plugged in and said, well, this one is pretty much doesn't have that many faults. And at this price point especially, I think they kind of nailed this. And I think FiiO's been doing this for quite a while. They have quite a lot of models, so it's not that much of a surprise that there's nothing really wrong with it, and it's a safe pick. And all those FiiO fans, I think you guys will sort of feel right at home with this one. So I do have some thoughts on the sound on this one, and I think FiiO tends to have, or maybe give me motivation to talk about sound on their DAC amps as well. And I think the K11 R2R version is no different. So is it closer to color or transparent? I would call it closer to transparent. There's not really, like when you talk about colored and an overly warm or rolled off way, it's not like that. It's very much closer to transparent. My first impression was that it sounded a little bit shallow. And I would say that kind of plugging it in right away, that's what I thought. I don't think that's actually right. I'm not sure what they really did. They either slightly lowered the ends or they bumped up the upper mids. Either way, you get this slight emphasis on the vocals, and it's noticeable. And it's just really hard to tell whether they're lowering the ends or they're bumping up the middle. They did something in between. And there's, if you listen to it with IEMs, there's a very likable benefit to that style sound. You get this slightly cleaner sub bass. You do get more texture on the sub bass. There's less noise in the upper treble area and the air area. It's probably going to be less noticeable on headphones, but on IEMs, it's actually very noticeable, especially when you're listening to the air region. And some of those sets, especially in 2024, had this really big boost in the air region. And a DAC amp like this sort of cuts it down a little bit, so it sounds a lot cleaner. You don't have a lot of that noise in the upper area. I think this will be a very likable sound signature for certain people. Some people like all the air. Some people like all the extension. And, you probably look for a different FiiO product. But this one has a really interesting, likable style to it that, I found it very interesting to listen to on IEMs. If you're a stage-aware person, the emphasis tends to draw the stage a little down. You don't get as much hype because they kind of knock the air down a little bit, and it brings the vocals forward. So you kind of have, if you're used to hearing things around your head kind of in a circle, this will kind of move everything a little bit forward and a little bit down. So it's kind of right there in your field of view or field of hearing. And it is it's a very likable way. I think people tend to like that on certain IEMs, and to have a DAC amp that kind of gives you that style sound, I think it was actually quite interesting as well. But overall, like any DAC amp, you can nitpick the coloration or the gain synergy, how your particular set matches with the gain, the high, medium, or low, how you light that stage, whether it's around your head or more forward and kind of all there in view. And it's a very nice arrangement. But does it sound familiar to you? Does it meet expectations at the price point? Does it sound resolving? Does it feel like there is a return on the sound quality for your investment that you spent on the K11 R2R version? Yeah, I think FiiO got all of those things right. And like I said, you can nitpick it. I can nitpick the stage all day, but I think at the price point for how it sounds, how people are going to enjoy it as their first desktop level DAC amp, I think it's a really, really solid unit. And as I said, it's a really nice, safe pick for your first DAC amp in that respect. And there's also a bonus to it. I think at $160, you are getting an R2R DAC, a resistor DAC, and that's going to be of interest to people. Whether you like the amp section of it, regardless of that, you can actually just use the line out and turn it into an R2R DAC for your more expensive or your favorite style amp. And if you treat it just like the DAC and run line out into your favorite amp, I actually found it a little bit more enjoyable because I have a few amps, and to hear the R2R version into those amps, I think felt more familiar to me, and kind of a lot of these nitpicks that I talked about over here kind of go away when you use the line out and run it into an amp that you have and enjoy. So, again, $160 for just treating it as an R2R DAC. I think that's actually pretty reasonable. And again, you get some other features and you could always use it as a DAC amp. So lots of bonus there that comes along with a very affordable price. I think FiiO kind of nailed it in that respect. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.